हेलो फ्रेंड्स, केजी क्लासेस में आपका स्वागत है। आज हम आपको मिल्टन के क्वेश्चन आंसर के बारे में बताएंगे। क्वेश्चन, हाउ फार डू यू एग्री विद द स्टेटमेंट दैट इन स्पाइट ऑफ हिमसेल्फ ही मिल्टन वाज इन डीप सिंपैथी विद सैटन द ग्रेट रेबेल ऑफ हेवन एंड द एनिमी ऑफ गॉड, और द ब्रीफेस्ट सर्वे ऑफ मिल्टन्स रिलीजियस thought and feeling makes sufficiently absurd the romantic idea that he was of the devil's poetry without knowing it. Discuss the appropriateness of this observation. Or Black, while speaking of Paradise Lost, said that Milton was of the devil's party without knowing it. Discuss this statement. Answer, heading a views of critics. William Blake made his famous remark in his poem The Marriage of Heaven and Hell that the region Milton wrote in flatters when he wrote of angels and it at liberty when of devils and hells is because he was a true poet and of the devil's party without knowing it. Shelley, in his A Defense of Poetry, observed Milton's devil as a moral being is as far superior to his god. Lascelles Abercrombie said, it is surely the simple fact that a paradise lost exists for any one figure, that is Satan. It is in the figure of Satan that imperishable significance of paradise lost is entered. Even E.M. W. Tilliard, an opponent of Stanist, admits that Milton did partly ally himself with Satan, that unwittingly he was led away by the creature of his own imagination. The character of Satan expresses as no other character or act or feature of the poem does, something in which Milton believed very strongly, heroic energy. Heading a character of Satan. All such views about the glorification of Satan on the part of Milton are the outcome of some apparent fact that about the character of Satan. At least in the first two books, Satan has been represented as a symbol of desire, energy, and vital creative forces which enable man to live most fully. Satan's species are full of rousing and highly emotive words such as liberty, oppression, and freedom. It was partly their emotional involvement with such themes which caused the romantics like Blake and Shelley to respond so enthusiastically to the character of Satan. While writing the poem, Milton claimed that his aim was to justify the base of God to man, but so many critics find that Milton had failed in achieving this aim. Gerson has gone to the extent of saying that instead of justifying the base of God, Milton has justified Satan's base to man. Such critics contend that from the beginning Milton fixed all the interest to the reader on Satan, Satan's heroic suffering, indomitable courage, and unyielding purpose of carrying on resistance to the will of God excite our admiration and sympathy. The greatness of Satan lies in the fact that his purpose is steady and fearless, and his determination to pursue the purpose is unshakable. In at least half the poem, Satan appears superior to God in many ways. In the other half too, he is a force to be reckoned with. Some critics feel to the extent that it is ultimately Satan and not God who tempts man does fall and by him seduced. Heading an image of God. As against Satan, the image of God suggested is that of an autocrat, a glorified feudal monarch. It was against a feudal monarch that Milton fought. God has been presented as whimsical manipulator eager to maintain his superior position in the opinion of Professor Baldock. The movement of the thought, the fall of Eve and then of Adam, is very interesting. There is a brilliant suggestion that the prohibition may be a trick of gods to rest their courage, for if they risk that whatever thing that be to achieve knowledge of good and evil, they will have earned their Creator praise. Indeed, if God punish for this, he will not be just. What if he is not just? How can he be God? So momentarily God is argued away, but the next moment he is back again, this time as a God, as the God who may be testing them in an expected way, but in quite a different guise, as a God jealous of them, bent on keeping them down, adding a Satan and God. Then again God, if he is kept in the background, does not seem to be a very impressive figure. His thunderbolt gives him advantage over Satan. By the weight of sheer physical force, he defeats Satan. The intellectual preeminence of Satan in his speeches in hell is something rather notable. After all, Satan was able to draw a good portion of the angels after him by virtue of his skill and ability as a leader and his advocacy of freedom and equality. The latter must have appealed to the more intelligent angels, so it is a contest between God and Satan, not on a personal issue but on the broad issue of the freedom of the angels, and in this God seems to compare unfavorably with Satan. The defeat and rout of Satan and his followers reveals that God rules by sheer brute force. This impression is at least conveyed to us at once by reading the first book of Paradise Lost, adding a criticism unjustified. What, in spite of all such criticism, Milton cannot be said to belong to the devil's party. In fact, the virtues which have been alleged to glorify Satan should be taken only at their face value, which is perhaps the greatest proof possible that Milton was right in believing that the self-seeking, self-dramatizing energy which Satan embodies is misleading and dangerous to the majority of human beings. If we go a bit deeper into the intentions of the poet, we find that he does nowhere justify Satan's base to men. Some critics feel that Milton's realized that too much sympathy for Satan would destroy the poem's avowed purpose to justify the base of God. Therefore, he deliberately degraded the fallen angel. Thus, we find Satan soon degenerating. This change in Satan is repeatedly symbolized by his fading luster as he drops further and further away from his former glory in being one of God's chief servant, adding a dramatic necessity. The glorification of Satan was a dramatic necessity before Milton. Milton was writing a great theological epic exhibiting the combat between the greatest forces of good and evil. Through the combat between God and Satan, in order to make the victory of good splendid, it was necessary to make the force of evil as grand as that of God. Good. When the bait of the poetry is thrown in on Satan's side, the effect must be to equalize in our imagination the relative magnitude of the contending force. Dr. Rajan. Thus, the briefest survey of Milton's religious thought and feeling makes sufficiently absurd the romantic idea that he was of devil's party without knowing it. Next question है, do you agree with the view that free will is the theme of Paradise Lost? Answer heading है, doubts about Milton's purpose. Milton wrote Paradise Lost with an express purpose of justifying the base of God to man, but some critics have doubts about the success of the poet in achieving this aim. They find God as an unfeeling despot who unjustly punished Adam and Eve. For example, Baldock maintains that the movement of the thought, the fall of Eve and then of Adam, is very interesting. There is a brilliant suggestion that the prohibition may be a trick of gods to test their courage, for it's they risk that whatever thing that be to achieve knowledge of good and evil, they will have earned their creator praise indeed. If God punishes for this, he will not be just. What if he is not just? How can he be good God? It is also argued that fall of man cannot be justified on the ground that the figure of God that emerges is that of a super being who finds peculiar pleasure from the follies of his own creature. Heading an accurate study of the poem. But this type of criticism only shows an inaccurate study of the poem. The poet has justified the base to God by bringing in the doctrine of free will in Paradise Lost, Book 3. Milton discusses this doctrine. God, being omnipotent and omniscient, knows the past, present and future, or everything and every being that exists in heaven, earth, of hell, or any of the innumerable planets and stars. He was the foreknowledge of everything that happens anywhere in the limitless cosmos. Nothing can happen anywhere without the foreknowledge and permission of God. God had the foreknowledge of the angels' rebellion against his authority under the leadership of Satan. He also knew beforehand of Satan's success in seducing Adam and Eve to commit sin against God's explicit ordinance. He could certainly have prevented these things from happening if he had only willed so. Therefore, the Son of God asked God himself why he allowed these things to happen at all. In reply to this query, God explained the principle of free will. Heading God's dictates. God created human beings and all ethereal powers just and right. He also gave them conscience of judge and distinguish for themselves right from wrong, the good from evil. Good and evil exist together in the universe. It is for man under the dictates of his conscience to shun evil and follow the path of good. Within these limits and under these conditions, man is free to stand by God and act according to divine principles or go against them. Raphael also tells Adam in book 8th, 2nd 642-641 to stand or fall free in thine own arbitrament it lies. Heading a conscience, will and reason. Conscience, will and reason have been given to man to choose his own path of action. Therefore, man cannot blame any eternal power for his action or for his suffering in consequence of his own action. If God had not made human beings and ethereal powers free to act according to their conscience, how could he distinguish between the true and false, the constant and the inconstant. So God says, I made him just and right, sufficient to have stood, thought free to fall. Such I created all the ethereal powers and spirits, both them who stood and them who fell. Freely they stood and fell who fell not free. What proof could they have given sincere of true allegiance, constant faith or love, where only what they need must do appear, not what they would? In fact, Adam's fall was due to the submission to temptation. Without the use of his better judgment, he was quite free to reject the temptation, but he committed the sin of transgression in spite of Raphael's advice in Book 8. Take heed lest passion sway thy judgment to do aught which else free will would not admit. Thine end of all thy sons, the beel or boo in thee is placed, beware. Thus it is rightly said by critics like Greenlaw that the theme of paradise lost is less than the obedience to God than the obedience to temperance, to the rational against the irrational part of human nature, having a free will. Again, the action of free will he is evidenced in man's redemption. The fall of man is not final. The eating of the fruit of the tree of knowledge bring him the gift of free will. Man is to be given a chance by a wise and judicious use of free will, and not by blind obedience he can regain the favor of God. The fall of man, in fact, was a blessing in disguise. Gifted with free will, man could render willing obedience to God. Adam and Eve lived at first in a happy garden, in a state of ideal bliss. Compulsory obedience was demanded of them. There was no knowledge, and there could be therefore no sin. Ignorance was their bliss. They were less than men, nor were they the mere angel. For angels have knowledge. For their act of disobedience they lost Eden, but they gained a conscience. Thanks, best of luck.